Billionaire rips her badge. You're done. Don't ever touch my prototype. Heat haze ripples, a tiny amber warning blinks. She doesn't plead. Launch it now and you'll melt a valve in one lap. He laughs for the investors. Garage feelings aren't data. Throttle slams wide. Rev screams, swallowing his mockery. And we freeze on the engine temp spiking before anything explodes. Rev limiter screams. Carbon fiber shudders. $1 million hypercar idles angry orange, heat shimmer writhing over its open engine cover, while the billionaire owner storms toward the one person who just kept it from grenading, and fires her. The private test facility looks more like a luxury gallery than a pit lane. Polished epoxy floor, mirror, shining under strip LEDs, climate-controlled glass walls, investors sipping espresso behind soundproof panels. In Bay 3, Victor hails Pride, an unreleased matte obsidian hypercar. Prototype number 7, twin turbos ticking as they cool, nose still dusted with transport film. Zara, 25, coveralls half-zipped, dark curls corralled under a faded shop bandana, balances a handheld pit anemometer across the left intake, shrugging her shoulder against the edge of the carbon bodywork to feel subtle pressure pulses. One gloved hand traces invisible airflow arcs, while her smartwatch HUD flickers telemetry. IAT 43 degrees Celsius. Climbing. Transient knock events 2. 3. A faint, dry ping echoes inside the engine. Pre-ignition nibbling at the tune. Behind her, a sharp clap. Step away from the car. Zara doesn't flinch. Your charge temps are 5 degrees higher on bank 2. Active flaps binding at partial. If you launch at this heat soak, your detonation margin is gone. Victor Hale's reflection advances in the gloss of the carbon flank before his voice reaches full disdain. Mid-40s, surgically tidy stubble, tailored paddock blazer over a white polo with his initials embroidered like a crest. 2 investors trail, curious. A camera drone swivels to capture confrontation. Victor circles, eyes narrowing at her improvised setup. Cheap 3D printed airflow collar clipped near a 7-figure body panel. Who authorized? He glances at her name patch, scoffs. Zara, to touch my prototype? She meets his gaze. Calm. Public documentation of the ECU patch you bought off that boutique tuner is sloppy. They disabled a thermal safeguard to goose numbers for your reel. Your right turbo's overspeeding 6%. One investor raises a brow. Another taps their tablet, shadow of interest crossing their face. Victor laughs. Sharp. Performative. What I bought was expertise, not backyard superstition. You were hired to rotate tires and log parts, not rewrite the laws of forced induction. Crew members glance over from neighboring bays. A junior engineer mouths, "She's right," to a friend, then looks away when Victor squares his shoulders. Zara gestures toward the live screen above the bay. 2 line graphs. 1 green. Her predicted safer torque curve. 1 angry red. Current tune. Dial back ignition 2 degrees above 5,800 RPM and restore the failsafe. You'll drop transient spikes and hold higher sustained output. Victor's smirk hardens. He steps between her and the hypercar and, very deliberately, reaches for the RFID badge clipped to her coverall. Swipe. Access light flickers from blue to dead amber. You're done. Security will escort you to the parking lot. Touch the car again, and legal will bury you. Gentlemen? He pivots to the investors. Watch this machine properly breathe once she's out of the air. Zara inhales through her nose, locking 1,000 retorts behind pressed lips. She unclips her multi-tool, sets it gently on the bench, a tiny ritual of controlled exit, and picks up her scarred alloy toolbox and a duffel patched with her late father's garage logo. As she walks past Victor, she murmurs, "Not for drama, just fact. 15 minutes of heat soak. Launch hard and you'll see knock at Sector 2. Push another lap and you'll cook an exhaust valve." He tilts his head. Exaggerated pity. Predictions are for people without data. Data's on your dash, she replies. Security holds the glass door. Cool external air knifes in. She steps into sun glare. Inside, Victor slides into the driver's carbon bucket, belts in, flicks the yoke-mounted mode selector to Hyper AGG. The center dash splashes vivid color. Boost targets, lambda, oil temps. He guns throttle for the audience. Twin turbos inhale with predatory whoosh. Overhead display flashes a tiny amber advisory. IAT Delta, plus 7 degrees Celsius / thermal buffer thin. A soft triple beep. A caution. Not yet a shout. Victor smirks, taps the acknowledgement away with gloved fingertip. Investors lean forward, hungry for spectacle. Outside, halfway to the staff lot, Zara stops. Her smartwatch pulses haptics. She still has low-level read privileges bleeding through the revoked badge. Live numbers scroll ghost green across her wrist. Intake, air temp, climbing. Cylinder 5, knock counter, tick, tick, under her breath. It's starting. Inside Bay 3, the hypercar's exhaust note shifts. Slightly hollow edge creeping in as timing pulls a fraction. The dash now flickers a second warning in the corner. Darker amber. Victor curls his lip. Ignore, he commands, and rolls toward the open pit exit. Zara closes her eyes, counting. 3, 2. Dash cluster. Heat stress. Pre-ignition risk flashes amber, not yet red. Victor floors it anyway. Gravel crunches under Zara's boots as she reaches the service alley. Sun bouncing off a ragged chain-link fence, dumpsters humming with heat. The pristine test facility looks like a spaceship behind her. Out here feels like the world she clawed her way from. She squats, sets the battered toolbox down, flips the lid just enough to free a slim tablet wrapped in duct-taped foam. Screen springs alive. Her Shadow Dash app auto-handshakes with the hypercar's sub-bus through a lingering diagnostic credential fragment she built months ago, in case the official app locked up. Telemetry, ghost feed. IAT 56 degrees Celsius to 58 degrees Celsius. Charge pressure 1.97 bar. Target 1.90. Turbo B. Overspeed plus 6.2%. Sill 5 knock events. 14, 15, 17. She exhales through teeth. He's heat-soaking it on the outlap. Showing off. Phone buzz. Crew group chat screenshot forwarded by a sympathetic part-timer. Crew chat. Lead tech. Zara preaching doom again. PR guy. She'll blame airflow feelings when number 07 crushes it. Marketing Sam. Glad she's gone. Mood killer. Intern Miguel. Typing. Deleted. Her jaw tightens. Thumb hovers. Does she reply? Number oxygen wasted. Flashback. 10-year-old Zara in her father's cramped neighborhood garage. Fluorescent flicker. A junkyard turbo splayed open on a milk crate. Her dad's gravel voice. Listen, more than you look. Heat tells stories before metal screams. He had her hold a cheap thermocouple probe while he spooled a battered compressor with an air gun, showing how the temperature spike rate predicted bearing failure. She learned the feel before she ever saw formal charts. Back to now. The hypercar hits the far end of the test loop. Remote mics relay its wail. Deep, savage, then a faint duller undertone as the ECU yanks a hair of timing. Investors on the mezzanine cheer anyway. They don't hear the subtle defeat. Victor opens comms to the pit. Power feels soft past 6K. Bump boost 2%. Zara snarls, "Don't you dare!" As her watch vibrates again. Telemetry. Lambda swings lean 1.05 momentarily. Should be 0.98 under full load. EGT, Bank 2. 915 degrees Celsius to 928 degrees Celsius to 941 degrees Celsius. Coolant delta across radiators increasing. Fan duty pinned. Another flashback flickers. College Dyno Lab. Professor dismissing her hand-sketched airflow splitter idea. Because we already modeled that. She baked it into the open-source sim anyway. Lab posted record efficiency a week later. Professor never credited her. Fine. Results outlive dismissal. Thundercloud-shaped heat shimmer writhes above prototype number 7 on her tablet's live thermal overlay. She pinches zoom. Bank 2 exhaust header hotspot creeping beyond her predicted window. Come on, Victor. Lift. Let it breathe. Inside, junior engineer on comms. Sir. EGT. Climbing faster than model. Maybe one cool lap? Victor. Smug. Models for averages. We're making the model. Tighten wastegate a hair. Knock count stair steps. 23, 29, 34. Zara's mouth goes dry. She opens her retune module, UI neon against shade. Begins drafting an emergency patch. Reduce ignition, advance 1.8 degrees above load cell 180. Enrich target AFR. Widen active aero low-speed sweep sooner to scav vents. Drop oil temp warning threshold for soft limp. A shadow falls across her. Delivery driver unloading crates next door watches her code. Race game? He asks. Real engine. Real money. Real ego, she mutters. Hypercar scream grows raw over distant berm. Then a cough. Micro misfire signature. Her haptics spike. Alert. Turbo B shaft. Speed 131% of nominal safe limit. Sustain 3.2 seconds. EGT bank. 2. 957 degrees Celsius. 968 degrees Celsius. 976 degrees Celsius. Knock. Adapt. Max comp applied valve seat temp. Model estimated. Approaching critical, a single amber on her screen flips. Blood red. Exhaust valve failure risk. 0-100 hours ES to threshold. She freezes, full body chill in midday heat. That's it. 60 seconds to meltdown. No official channel open to her. Options blink. Do nothing. Watch hubris self-immolate, or throw a Hail Mary. She pings the one green dot still showing in her private contact overlay. Miguel, intern. Message. Engine 60s from valve failure. Apply safe patch. I'll push revised map. You plug in. I'll guide. 3 pulsing dots. Disappear. Come on, kid. She attaches the partial patch anyway and presses send. System spits back a warning. Insufficient auth key. High level. She grits teeth. Dives into her toolbox. Fishes out a wafer-thin NFC dongle. Her clandestine clone of an early diagnostic token she captured before policies tightened. She pair hooks it to her tablet, generating a rolling half signature. Enough to handshake if someone inside physically confirms with a bay panel. Another ping, Miguel responds, "If I get caught, I'm fired." She fires back, "If you don't, engine dies and they blame you anyway for not flagging." Beat. "Where's panel?" he asks. "Right there." She pushes, a compressed AR overlay, a translucent blueprint of Bay 3 lighting up the workstation port and the discrete CAN injector harness behind the left wing panel. Timer overlay. 00:57. 00:56. 00:55. On her tablet, patch compile bar inches. 12%. 28%. Com audio bleed. Her hacked feed picks it up. Victor's voice strained. "Why is torque dropping? Add fuel? Give me power back." Junior engineer whispered. "Parameters are pulling to protect." The patch compile slows at 61%, CPU throttling in the sun. She shields the tablet with her body. Back in Bay 3, Miguel glances, left, right, crouches, tying a shoe, fingertips fumbling for the CAN harness as AR arrows dance only in his borrowed smart lenses. Timer. 00:34. Compile. 74%. 81%. 87%. Zara lifts eyes to the horizon where heat-blurred mirage of the hypercar flickers mid-straight. Timer. 00:19. Miguel plugs dongle. Her tablet chimes. Physical link established. Final compile surges. 100%. Please take, she whispers, thumb hovering over deploy. A new obstacle flashes on screen. Security challenge. Second factor required. Badge present. Her badge is dead. She curses, then remembers. She yanks her revoked RFID from her coverall pocket, scrapes a corner of its chip with the multi-tool until copper glints, presses it to the NFC dongle, forcing a brute inductive sniff of its decaying identity. System hesitates. Circle spins. Timer. 00:8. 00:7. Screen locks. Then slides green. Override token accepted. Degraded. She slams deploy. Progress bar. 5%. 18%. Inside, Miguel's head snaps up. Security camera over Bay 3 rotates. Another crew member has noticed his crouch. Outside, Zara's haptics spike again. EGT Bank 2. 983 degrees Celsius. Valve projection. 00:05. Deploy bar freezes at 62%. From distant track, hypercar note wavers. A strained metallic rasp. Move, she breathes. Deploy jumps. 63%. 74%. 92%. A shadow looms. The facility security guard stepping into the alley, calling her name. Deploy, 99%. Buffer stall. Zara's lips form a single word. Please. Cold, re-entry, from cliff. Deploy, 99%. Buffering. Zara's pulse hammers in her ears louder than the distant hypercar scream. The progress ring crawls a single pixel, stops, like the system itself is holding its breath. Security guard in doorway. Zara, you can't be on company systems. Hand over the tablet. She doesn't look up. 4 seconds, and you either have a saved 7-figure engine or molten scrap. Your call. He hesitates. The confidence of a routine eviction colliding with the unfamiliar terror of maybe being the reason a prototype dies. His hand lowers a centimeter. Deploy. 100%. Patch, handshake sent. Awaiting ECU ACK. 0.2 seconds. 0.4 seconds. Inside Bay 3, Miguel's smart lenses flash a ghosted confirmation prompt over the Bay console. Unauthorized cal. Safe map VZ'd. Accept, reject. Sweat beads inside his collar. Senior mechanic strides over, barking at a tech about tire pressures. One more step and he will have clear line of sight to the console. Miguel wipes an imaginary smudge off the screen, palm covering the prompt, thumb stabbing accept beneath his hand's shadow. ECU ACK received. Applying stage 1, fuel and ignition. Zara exhales half a lungful. Stage 2, come on. Stage 1 metrics roll in. Bank 2 timing pull increases. Cylinder pressure spikes flatten marginally. EGT climb slows. 983 degrees Celsius to 982 to 979. But turbo shaft speed still screaming 128%. The mechanical overspeed isn't solved by fuel alone. Stage 2. Active aero sequence / intercooler diverter. Pending hardware sync. A red subalert pulses. Left rear aero servo not indexed. That jam Victor ignored earlier. Zara's fingers fly over her tablet, hooking into the old actuator firmware she sandboxed months ago for a concept she never got sign-off to test. She initiates a manual reindex, but without direct line-of-sight telemetry DMA, the packet might arrive too late or not at all. ECU rejects. Access denied. Privilege too low. She grimaces. Fine, we ghost it. She opens her smartwatch micro-flasher, a tiny program her father once used to hijack aftermarket ECUs during roadside rescues. Pairing handshake fails. She reroutes through the degraded RFID chip, forcing a dirty pass-through. This time, it latches. Manual servo pulse. Sent. ECU. Non-standard command. Flagged. Zara. Ignore the flag. Just move. On Miguel's console, a small wrench icon blinks. He taps it. The jammed aero flap twitches, then sweeps through its full arc with a sick metallic squeal that only trained ears would wince at. Airflow delta on Zara's tablet shifts. Intake temp descent accelerates. EGT 979 to 972 to 964 degrees Celsius. Turbo overspeed 128% to 122% to 180%, 117%. Inside the cockpit, Victor scowls. Why is the rear wing cycling? Who touched my map? The live feed catches his agitation. Investors exchange looks, some intrigued, some annoyed. Bay comms pick up junior engineer's cautious voice. Thermal stabilizing, sir. Power plateau, but average lap segment improving. Victor snarls. I didn't ask for stability. I asked for apex speed. He buries throttle for the final third of the straight. Engine roar deepens. Not the ragged edge of imminent failure, but a smoother, denser note. The patch timing curve allows slightly more sustainable torque earlier in the band. Exit speed over previous lap segment climbs by a whisper that will add up. Zara watches the deltas compile. There you are. Security guard shifts weight. You done? Not until that shaft speed drops under 110%, she says, already typing. Stage 3. Wastegate duty recal/boost sealing. This one is sensitive. If she cuts too deep, power drop gives Victor ammunition to frame her as sabotaging performance. Too shallow. Metal still cooks. She writes a conditional. Reduce duty cycle aggressively. Only when knock retard, greater than threshold. And shaft speed, greater than 115%. Else taper. Deploy patch delta. Queued. Requires same physical confirm. Miguel's prompt pops. This time, senior mechanic is standing directly over him. What are you doing? Miguel's throat clicks. Thinking faster than fear, he points at the earlier jam error in log history. Clearing fault seeds. If they persist, PR can't film clean telemetry to investors' portal. Senior mechanic grunts. Ego chooses not to look ignorant about fault seeds, nods, steps away to shout at a tire tech. Miguel hits accept. Wastegate duty oscillation adjusts. Turbo speed. 117% to 114% to 111%. EGT slumps below the cliff line. 958 degrees Celsius. Zara slumps against chainlink, forehead damp. The hypercar on the far straight no longer sounds like a grenade with the pin half pulled. It's simply ferocious. She records a pre-post snapshot. Red ragged torque trace versus her smoother green sustained curve. Overlays predicted valve temperature projection. Now bending away from failure. Inside Bay 3, Victor completes the hot lap and coasts in. Investors applaud. Their ears only register fast, not the averted mechanical autopsy. Victor kills ignition, jumps out, theatrically taps the roof. Gentlemen, peak aggression, 0 issues. Above him, overhead monitor, still fed by her ghost link, shows a subtle Cal Mod icon, flickering where there should be none. Investor number 2 frowns, zooms with 2 fingers. Victor notices the glance, follows it. Brow furrows. Why is there calibration activity? Who authorized modification? His voice spikes, crew stiffens. Senior mechanic blusters. No modification. Must be a logging artifact. Investor number 2 pulls up his tablet. Cross-references raw channel list. A capability he insisted on when funding this facility. I'm seeing signature Zara X in patch history. He looks around. But I thought she was fired. A hush. Miguel's face drains color. Outside, Zara's tablet pings. Patch log accessed by investor, consortium lead. She flicks off screen brightness, heart chopping harder again, but this time from the recognition phase. Visibility is dangerous, and leverage. Security guard's radio crackles. All personnel, investor lead, requests fired mechanic's presence in Bay 3 immediately. Guard exhales. Looks like you're invited back. She gathers toolbox, slings the duffel. Before stepping forward, She rewinds the moment her father's voice surfaces in muscle memory. If you have to prove yourself, bring receipts, not rage. She exports a tidy side-by-side diagnostic PDF. Before versus after. Labels risk curve. Stamps timecodes. Cloud syncs to a read-only link. Taps send to the investor lead and, just to trap narrative, CCs the facility's general legal mailbox. Then she walks, slow and deliberate, through heat shimmer toward the glass door, security trailing like a reluctant chaperone. As it hisses open, Victor turns, public mask wavering, camera drone pivots, lens dilating. He smirks with teeth, voice honeyed venom. Couldn't stay away from what you broke? Zara lifts the tablet, projects the twin curves holographically. The investor had granted her temporary display rights. Green overlays red, sustained output higher, thermal stress curve diffused like a bomb. Actually, she says, voice level, I stayed just far enough to keep you from committing $1 million self-own. And I can get you 4% more real average speed without ever flirting with valve death. Gasps. Investor lead. 4%, safely? Prove it tomorrow. You win. We restructure R&D leadership around you. You fail. You're permanently blacklisted. Victor snaps. You don't have authority? Investor lead cuts him off with a palm. Funding speaks. This is merit. Zara's eyes lock on Victor's. Deal. The bay feels colder now. Air thick with silent reputational math. Investor consortium lead Marlowe lowers the hologram Zara projected. Green curves still ghosted over red like a verdict. Crew members plot escape routes with their eyes. Cameras hover, their gyroscopic hum a mechanical whisper. Victor forces a laugh that lands brittle. 4%? Anyone can cherry-pick a single hot lap. Zara tilts the tablet, pulling up a time-aligned segment comparison. Sector A, plus 0.42 kph average exit. Sector B, torque plateau stabilized. Peak EGT reduction 24 degrees Celsius while maintaining speed. Objective receipts, just as her father taught. Bring data, not volume. Marlowe taps the air, freezing a frame. Deliver a validated plus 4% improvement in sustained average lap speed. Under lower thermal stress limits, you claim, within 24 hours. Independent sensors. If you hit it, you design the next performance package and assemble an inclusive talent cell. If not, Victor retains full control, and this disruption never repeats. Victor. And she indemnifies us for any degradation. Zara. Mutual indemnity. If you block or sabotage access, trial voids in my favor. Marlowe's eyes gleam, relishing live leverage management. Agreed. Rule set uploads in 10 minutes. Victor turns away, jaw working. Senior mechanic leans in. We can just sandbag data tomorrow. Make sure her delta never clears 2%. Zara hears every syllable. Sandbagging just hands me documentary proof of manipulation, she says, almost kindly. Hidden throttle closures leave signatures in airflow and can timing. You'd hand me the R&D chair. Miguel coughs into his sleeve to hide a grin. Security escorts Zara to a glass conference room, a neutral prep space. Neutral, in theory. In practice, it's a sterile box with a glass desk, a patchy Wi-Fi bubble, and a single company workstation still on baseline engineer permissions, the very level that failed to prevent Victor's earlier Tune purchase. Her personal tablet is scanned, flagged, reissued with a white-listed sandbox. Her improvised NFC dongle, confiscated. She unrolls her ragged microfiber cloth, lays out salvaged favorites. A pocket bore scope, thermal crayon, collapsible airflow probe adapter she 3D printed in a laundromat between shifts years ago. They can take root access. They can't confiscate pattern recognition. On wall glass, she begins sketching. Objective. Plus 4% sustained lap average, not a single draggy spike. Constraints. Stock fuel. Stock turbos. No hardware swap. Marlowe's rule addendum blinking up. Permitted. Reprofiling intake tract within existing housing. Aero actuation timing. ECU calibration, with hash-logged versioning, brake drag mitigation, hidden delta wells, thermal headroom reallocation, and aero early turn stabilization margin. She circles those last two. That's where you live, she murmurs. Elsewhere, Victor strides into his private lounge, floor-to-ceiling OLED playing silent footage of his past podiums. He opens an encrypted channel. Contact. Triton Tune Labs, the boutique outfit who sold him the unsafe patch. You'll send me a compliance map that looks safe but bleeds just enough response. She can't find the 4%, he hisses. Rep replies, after earlier fiasco, logs will expose manipulation. Victor. Then ghost it. Masked like torque smoothing. Rep. Costs you. Money is not the metric today. He slams palm on bar. Narrative is. Back in the bay, Senior Mechanic distributes updated baseline map chips to appear cooperative, embedding subtle throttle angle hysteresis near mid-RPM transitions. If Zara tunes on top of it, her gains flatten. If she wipes it, Victor cries tampering beyond rules. Miguel slips into Zara's glass cube carrying a contraband paper cup. Decaf, he whispers. Inside is not coffee. Miniature 3D printed velocity stack prototype he hid during the earlier purge, and a folded thermal scan from pre-crisis laps. The last clean baseline before boutique tune. Didn't know if they'd nuke archives, he says. She studies the scan. Subtle asymmetry plume, at the left intake she'd sensed with her shoulder hours ago. Good. This validates my subjective read. He glances at the board. Why reallocate thermal headroom first? Wouldn't aero timing give flashy gains? Flashy spikes are easy to discredit, she says. Endurance delta sticks. She gestures at the graph. If I cool the charge path earlier, ignition advance can stabilize instead of yo-yoing. That's invisible to a spectator but brutal over aggregate. Miguel nods, like he's just been handed a private key to a vault. Zara drafts a passive micro-diffuser collar around the compressor inlet using only scrap poly available from bay offcuts, within the rules. She models it in stripped-down CFD on her battered personal laptop they forgot to restrict, because they assumed a company workstation would distract her. The cloud instance throttles. She simplifies geometry, relying more on instinct, adjusting cross-sectional profile until simulated pressure pulses flatten. She prints a half-scale test piece in the facility's additive fab lab under Marlowe's permission. The lacquered additive tech eyes her warily. You're on timer, he says. Time is elastic when you're about to save someone from himself, she answers, loading filament. Printer whirs, layering a future argument 1 micron at a time. While it prints, she flips to code. Refactors her earlier safe patch into a telem-adaptive ignition schedule. Instead of static retreat, it leans timing back in when temps stay inside the narrow window she plans to carve with improved airflow. That's where the 4% lives. Not in headline peak numbers, but in maintaining near peak more of the lap. Alert blinks. Baseline map update required. Accept to continue. Cal work. The file hash does not match any legitimate repo she trusts. She opens it in diff mode, sees innocuous variable comments, but hidden among them. Slight throttle dampening at 42 to 55% pedal, and a subtle negative torque request table smoothing, enough to erode mid-corner recovery. Zara smiles, not amused, but satisfied. She forwards the diff to legal, with the subject, undeclared baseline variance, and CC Marlowe. 2 minutes later, Victor storms into the cube doorway. Why did you flag a routine compliance file? Because it bakes in performance drag you'll later claim was my failure, she says, spinning the diff so the non-technical investors now peering in can see highlighted red bars. Marlowe's tone is silk over steel. All baseline inputs will be mirrored to consortium cloud before application. Until then, no forced updates. He eyes Victor. Stay out of the calibration lane. Victor swallows, retreats. The first fissure in his control visible to the whole bay. Night edges in. Facility lighting shifts to low, cool tones. Zara wheels a fan array in front of a sacrificial intake mock-up and uses incense smoke, pilfered from a marketing scent booth, to visualize pre-swirl. Miguel watches the smoke column lean, then straighten as her half-scale collar mock absorbs turbulence. "You feel the flow first," she says, hand hovering just shy of the stream, reading micro-eddies on skin. Simulation confirms. People like Victor invert the order and miss whispers. She 3D prints full-size collar halves. Layer, time, threatens schedule. She trims the print resolution, accepts a rougher surface, planning to wet sand faster. 01:42 a.m. She lines up final tasks on board. Full-size collar fit check, aero actuation timing, remap, adaptive ignition calibration packaging, instrumented validation run, morning. Just as she compiles her adaptive map, her workstation flashes. Session terminated. Permission revoked. Tablet drops its ghost telemetry feed. Printer pauses mid-layer with an abrupt chirp. Her smartwatch loses handshake. A second later, a push notification pops. Due to security compliance, external devices offline until identity review complete. Identity review. Transparent code for a deliberate attempt to stall her build window. She looks up at the dark bay beyond glass. Motion sensors casting slicing shadows. Victor stands far across the floor, lit by a solitary security panel glow. Face, unreadable. Timer, Marlowe's big board. T, 09:1837 and ticking. Zara inhales, centers. Whispered mantra. Bring receipts, not rage. She reaches into her toolbox, pulls out a roll of painter's tape. Writes offline, not equal out on it. Sticks it above the dead screen. And turns toward the only still alive asset, the battered personal laptop with local SIM environment. "If they seal the network, we build offline," she says. Fingers already recoding map deltas in barebones mode. Timer bleeds. T. Nul ni 10. Sivok Tradive. Nul ni nul siv tolv. Zara's official console's dead. Only her beat-up personal laptop and pure mechanical intuition remain. She strips the adaptive map to essentials. 3 ignition cells, dynamic wastegate clamp, aero timing table. Fewer moving parts equals fewer vendor excuses. Miguel sneaks in with a portable UPS battery. "They killed half the outlets." She grins. "They just narrowed our failure surface." Full-size 3D print froze mid-layer. She saws the ragged edge clean. Heat forms the collar with a borrowed heat gun, then wets the rough interior with a microfilm of high-temp epoxy, finger-smoothing flow ridges, while it cures with a shop lamp. "Laminar enough," she murmurs. She reprograms the active arrow. Early micro-flutter at turn-in to kill understeer yaw spike, then a softer deploy mid-corner to keep drag low. It won't make highlight reels, but aggregate exit stability equals lap average gold. A security audit team appears. Lead extends a clipboard. Device surrender for identity verification. Zara hands them the already dead company tablet. Keeps her laptop under a microfiber cloth. Voice mild. Proprietary offline notes. Outside scope. Miguel coughs to hide a laugh. She fabricates a quick heat sleeve. Braids copper shielding from a trashed harness, slips it between intercooler outlet and a known hot loom bundle, dropping local soak a projected 3 to 4 degrees Celsius. 4 degrees equals timing headroom, she tells Miguel, who now repeats it like scripture. No dyno allowed, rule patch. So she rig tests with a leaf blower plus heat gun, logging delta temps via taped thermocouple to her smartwatch, extrapolates with a hacked spreadsheet. Margin curve shifts just enough. Victor strolls past at dawn, latte in hand, faux sympathy dripping. "You look tired. Accept failure gracefully. There's honor in that." Zara, sanding the collar seam. "There's data in not quitting early." He opens mouth. Marlowe's voice across PA. Calibration window opens in 30 minutes. All parties to baseline. Victor's smirk thins. Access quietly restored. Marlowe leaning on compliance. Zara and Miguel snap the collar halves around the intake snorkel. Torque low so carbon doesn't hairline crack. She lays the braided heat sleeve. Thermal crayon test on nearby housing wax barely softens now. Good sign. Console alive. She flashes her lean map. Hash logs to consortium cloud instantly. Transparency shield. Victor hovers, hunting for a critique. Can't find one he understands. If this chokes power, Zara, then you keep your throne. Beat. Pretty low personal risk for letting merit run. A controlled shakedown lap with her map shows exactly what she predicted. Peak power down a whisper, but mid-sector torque decay flattened. Intake temp delta, 6 degrees Celsius lower by sector 2. Ignition advance reads adds earlier. Investors studying overlays nod. The shape is different. Marlowe's summary. Preliminary. Plus 2.1% sustained average before full push, on a conservative lap. Victor scoffs. She'll hit ceiling early. Aero drag curve will punish her. Zara wipes epoxy dust off her gloves. Drag is a tax you overpay when you chase peaks instead of plateaus. Time left to attempt record lap session. T-1 hour, 0:00. Final map locked. Any further tweak risks disqualification. She palms her father's old torque wrench, presses it to her sternum. Tiny, ritual. Overhead display loads official challenge overlay. Baseline. Victor's unsafe map, adjusted to legal. Versus Zara, V2 adaptive. Gap projection still reads plus 3.2%. She needs plus 4.0% validated under independent sensors in one shot. No retries per Marlowe's fairness clause. Miguel whispers, need 0.8 more. Zara looks at the collar, at the aero timing table locked in. It's there. We banked heat headroom. We let the second lap breathe instead of spike. One clean push. Victor folds arms, or one public flameout. She straps into the cockpit. First time all day anyone let her drive her own calibration. Steering wheel wakes. HUD pulses green. Outside, sun edges high. Heat density rising. Not ideal, but dramatic. She flips to race mode. Adaptive map arming sequence ticks. 3, 2, 1. Dash flashes, calibration control, active, across her signed identifier. Zara exhales a single syllable. Execute. And drops the clutch. Opening beat. Ignition to apex. Zara launches. Rear tires chirp once, then hook with a clean, low-slip bite. HUD overlays 2 ghost traces. Baseline, white, versus, adaptive, green. Sector 1 entry speed identical, by design. She doesn't chase fireworks. She nurses temps into her plateau window. Telemetry. Live callouts, VO style. IAT, 41 degrees Celsius, 42. Holding. Baseline ghost had already hit 46 here. IGN. Advance, trimming, back 0.5 degrees. Then, re-adding. Micro breath. Not a choke. Turbo B shaft, speed 104%. Baseline ghost, 112% and climbing. Victor over pit comms can't help himself. You're soft into turn 2. Push, or you'll never see 4%. Zara, calm. Watch the average, not the spike. She brushes brakes, turns in. Her early aero micro-flutter routine triggers. Wing flutters 2 degrees, then settles, killing the momentary yaw nibble that used to force her to lift a hair. Mid-corner speed delta, plus 0.8 kph. Invisible to casual eyes, golden to the spreadsheet. Miguel watches the pit display, whispering, delta plus 0.4, 0.5. Investors lean toward the glass. Marlowe says nothing. He lets numbers narrate. EGT climbs slower. Timing add occurs 120 meters earlier than baseline ghost. Green line begins creeping above white. Not steep, just a quiet slope. She rolls into throttle. Adaptive wastegate logic bleeds a tiny puff of boost early to keep shaft speed under 110%, then lets it ramp with a smoother curve. Result: less knock retard event clustering. Torque trace on the green line stays fat where baseline Ghost started a sawtooth. Victor mutters, torque looks flatter. Meaningless unless top speed comes. As if on cue, exit speed to the back straight registers, plus 2.3 kilometers per hour over Ghost due to higher mid-corner retention. That compounding number starts warping the projected average. HUD projection ticks, plus 3.5% potential. Inside the pit, senior mechanic frowns. Why isn't her IAT climbing? We didn't change intercoolers. Miguel, barely hiding satisfaction. Charge path efficiency upgrade. You missed it when you fired her. Approaching the high-load sweeper where the engine nearly cooked earlier. Ambient temp has ticked up. Thermal buffer thins. A stray gust pushes the rear. Baseline Ghost previously forced a brief lift. Zara's early aero micro-flutter routine manipulates pressure before full yaw builds. She holds throttle 6% higher. Delta jumps to plus 3.8%. Alarms? None. Adaptive map sees temps in window and gently leans timing back in. Power pulses strong, not frantic. Then, an unexpected variable. A cross-track dust plume. Cleanup crew left residue. Traction control nibbles. Delta drop risk. She modulates with surgical foot pressure. Adaptive logic preserves the ignition add instead of yanking timing wholesale, due to the smoother torque request behavior she coded. Loss contained to a few tenths. Projection dips to plus 3.6%. Still short. Zara breathes. Patience. Exit is the bank. Hairpin historically punished the unsafe tune. Heat spike plus aero delay equals wheel spin plus torque cliff. Her revised aero timing now pre-indexes flaps 0.25 seconds earlier. Tires bite. She pivots clean. Mid-exit traction control barely twitches. Throttle stays open. Delta leaps, plus 3.9%. Victor grips pit wall. She'll cook on the last sector. Watch. Last complex is a sequence of fast direction changes where baseline map chased peaks, then faded. Her map's whole thesis comes to verdict. Can she hold the plateau? EGT plateaus below 950 degrees Celsius. Turbo shaft speeds 108/107%. IAT stabilized at 49 degrees Celsius. Baseline Ghost, 55 plus. Ignition advance stays within 0.7 degrees of ideal full power target for the first time across this duration. HUD projection pulses plus 4.0%, then plus 4.1% as she threads the chicane clean. None of the prior throttle sawtooth in Ghost Trace. She doesn't over-celebrate, still one braking zone left. Brakes, cooler, because aero micro flutter shaved tiny drag periods earlier. She brakes a whisper later, safe. Her heat-managed tires still in range. Turn in crisp. Exit stable. Start, finish line rushes. Transponder trips. Green trace locks. Official lap data. Independent sensor suite. Sustained, average lap. Gain, plus 4.12% over validated baseline set. Thermal compliant. Peak EGT delta, minus 23 degrees Celsius versus baseline. Knock event density, minus 68%. Turbo shaft overspeed events greater than 115%. 0. Baseline Ghost, logged 5. Mid-corner speed average across 8 critical turns, plus 0.7 kilometers per hour. Pit bay erupts. Miguel shouts. A few previously skeptical crew even clap on reflex before checking Victor's face. Victor forces applause once investors look his way. Great coaching result, he says too loudly, grasping for narrative. Marlowe lifts a hand. Coaching didn't write adaptive ignition schedules, Victor. Investor number 2 displays side by side. Zara Phi, 2 adaptive maps versus boutique unsafe patch. 1 preserved mechanical integrity. 1 nearly destroyed a prototype. We follow talent. Victor's jaw flexes. Cameras hover, waiting. Public narrative coin toss. Zara removes helmet, sweat beading, calm. Engine is now reliably reproducible in its gains. 4% wasn't luck. It's reclaimed efficiency you threw away for fireworks. Silence thick enough to squeegee. Victor inhales, exhales, calculating. He steps forward, hand out. Zara, congratulations. You saved my prototype. Words taste like metal shavings. Zara studies his hand, then shakes. Professional, not deferential. I saved the program. Prototype surviving is a side effect. Marlowe announces, effective immediately, Zara will head a new, inclusive performance lab. Charter. Sustainably extract speed while cultivating overlooked engineering talent. Budget authorization follows. Crew murmurs. Some relieved, better engines. Some threatened, shifting hierarchy. Intern Miguel tries to stand straighter, fails to hide grin. Victor mutters, we'll see if investors like inclusive as much as fast. Investor number 2 smiles. They just watched inclusive be fast. Marlowe produces a carbon fiber key fob embossed with the prototype's chassis number and a slim encrypted drive. Telemetry signing key. Your lane now. Zara pockets them beside her father's miniature torque wrench. First initiative. Open apprenticeship slots to indie garage techs. We'll find more plateaus waiting to be unlocked. Miguel. And maybe print a proper version of that collar? She smirks. We'll keep version 1 mounted, scar and all, as a reminder what scrap ingenuity can do. Press drones tighten formation. Zara addresses them. You just saw that sustainable speed beats reckless spikes. If someone ever fired you for touching a problem, remember, the solution they dismiss might save them later. Bring receipts, not rage. Notification buzzes on her new key. Invitation from an international endurance series. Demonstrate adaptive map in 24-hour prototype showcase. A rival team GM already requesting a consult. Zara smiles slightly. Bigger track. Same principles. Victor overhears, eyes narrowing. Seed of future rivalry sprouting. He whispers into a private comm. Get me everything on her previous designs. Foreshadowing new conflicts. Hypercar idling calm. Green adaptive icon glowing where amber warnings once lived. Night settles over the test facility. Inspection lamps halo the cooled prototype while a tech carefully peels transport film from a new glass panel. Inclusive performance lab. Zara watches, grease still in her knuckles. Face half disbelief, half dawning ownership. Hologram overlay. 3 laps stacked. Unsafe boutique tune. Spikes and red flags. Sanitized baseline. And her adaptive map. Calm green plateau climbing a steady margin. Marlowe. Plus 4.12% sustained, lower thermal stress, extended component life. Insurance rep mutters. Premiums drop. Numbers seal what arguments can't. Victor tries. An evolution of my vision. Marlowe, without looking. An evolution of method. Zara. New metrics. Sustained efficiency. Component health delta. 0 sandbagging. Peaks without plateaus are liabilities. Engineers exchange looks. Paradigm just shifted. Live drone. Chat scrolling. Victor. I fired the engineer who saved my prototype. Effective immediately, I surrender unilateral tuning authority. Audience floods with hashtag inclusive performance. He turns. Thank you. Zara nods. Acknowledgement, not validation. Folding tables, battered laptops, salvaged sensors. Applications pour in. Indie kart racer with thermal paint idea. Rideshare mechanic proposing adaptive cooling duct. Community college student offering vibration filtering code. Zara writes lab charter on glass. Merit equals output plus integrity. Transparent hash logging. Non-traditional apprentices. No sandbagging. Circles, culture is a calibration. In a dim office, he stares at an ignored early Aero sketch signed ZJ Proto, the seed of her micro-flutter logic. Regret? Narrative insurance? Both. He archives authorship properly, too late to look generous. Telemetry key buzzes. Rival, team, photo. Someone hand-fabricating a collar, mimicking her rough version 1. Epoxy ridge and all. Caption: "They're cloning your mod." Zara smirks. Without adaptive logic, it's a plastic donut. She drags a folder labeled V3-Concept Predictive Microvein Array triggered before knock-on set. Uncle Wes, cap-stained, steps in. "Kid, you bolted yourself to the big leagues." She hands him the scarred 3D printed collar. First lesson piece for apprentices. He weighs it like a trophy. Museum stuff. Training tool, she corrects. She removes one fastener, slips in a wafer tag etched. Sustained greater than spike-Z, retorques to a soft click. No loud badge. Hidden ethic. Facility, dark. Marlowe grants one silent run. Zara drives a smooth plateau, not chasing hero splits, proving repeatability is the flex. Lifts early, coasts the finish, listening to metal ping cool. Whisper: "We held the heat." They fired the mechanic for touching brilliance she supposedly didn't deserve. She answered with disciplined data and a 4% truth no tantrum could erase. Real speed isn't reckless spikes. It's designing a plateau where others burn out. If someone benched you for daring to touch the problem, drop your story. Like if you believe overlooked talent deserves a clean track, and share this run so the next engineer doesn't need permission to build.